Hi guys, I'm back with the second part of the series for grander school of 3 tables of 25NL Zoom. I mentioned in the previous part the primary differences between 25NL and 50NL as I perceive them. So if that interests you, I recommend you go back and watch the first part. Obviously, if you like my videos, then going back and watching the first part will be good for you anyway. So, anyway, I hope you enjoy this part. My goal is to comment a little bit more on a few of the more standard spots that come up, because the audience for 25NL video I think is a little bit obviously a little bit less advanced than the audience for 50NL video. And also and also I think fewer interesting spots will come up and more standard spots against 25NL opposition. We raise this flop because he's in this, and we expect him to struggle to fold when he does play a hand. We're betting a bit larger on this flop because of the fish in the pots. Normally we just flat this flop because we don't have that many value hands, so it's tough to construct a valid raising range here. Obviously, if the net shows he can fold, that's a bit of a disappointment. Oh right, yeah, that's why I've got him tagged as a decent reg, because I've talked poker with him, though I'm not actually sure how good he is. I haven't talked to him for about a year. He disappeared off 2+2, so I don't know how good he is at the moment. I think I should just go off his stats at this stage. King 9 off is a decidedly marginal open from the cutoff, but I think it's okay with a nits here and guys who aren't playing back that often. We're c-betting his flop because we have backdoor clubs, backdoor straight draw, an overcard, and also because we think he's going to struggle to defend enough on the flop. So yeah, I think in terms of c-betting, the reason why I talk about, we have these hands, we have this, it's because in general we do want a c-betting range on most flops. Obviously we probably want to c-bet less on 10-9-8 two-tone than King 7-2 rainbow as a pre-flop raiser, but in general we do want a c-betting range, and we want to be bluffing the hands which do have more equity. Again, here we have backdoor straight draws, sort of vague-ish backdoor flush draw that we can sometimes check back the turn with. On this kind of flop, we can just give up with pocket fives here. It hits his range pretty much harder than ours. Although we do have a 3 straight, which equates to a lot of backdoor straight draws. It's not really that strong a hand here, and also we have some showdown value if we occasionally manage to get it down to showdown. If he bets a river, it's going to be a pretty tough decision, by the way, because he should very rarely have a flush here. But when he's going min bets a flop, I'm just going to raise because I expect him to be doing it with a really weak range. When he calls, we're just giving up though, because I don't think he's planning to fold. I think we can, against 25NL population, we can exploitatively c-bet our entire range pretty small in this flop. Though this is part of the range that we give up on a turn, and we're checking back to river because, believe it or not, Queen High does have some showdown value here if we decided to call 10-9 on the flop, for instance. So it's not the greatest hand to use as a bluff. Furthermore, I think he's rarely going to fold better hands to a bet. I think against someone who looks fishy, we can bet 8 for value here. Value / protection, obviously, because a lot of his folding range has decent equity against our hand. I think he has Jack X too often here to call. I don't think people are going to bluff the spot often enough, and moreover, if they are going to bluff, they're going to lead the turn more than they should, considering it's a turn which is significantly better for our range than theirs. Indeed, for that reason, I think they should probably be checking their entire range on that turn. There is an argument that you shouldn't have a 3-betting range in middle position against an under-the-gun open, but I'm just going to. I think it's best to do so. I mean, I've seen this guy 4-bet ace queen off. I'm just going to get it in here. Though considering we're 120 big blinds deep, I think it's probably better to click it back with our 5-betting range. Okay, that's probably a useful note to have because I can infer things about his other tendencies from that. Normally I wouldn't flat deuces from middle position against under the gun. I think it's necessary. I think it's okay against the 25 population because I don't think they're going to squeeze as often as others would. And to be honest, against the fish, we're just going to bet jammy, even though we block most made hands here, just because he can call with basically any two broadways, clubs, 10x, and also just randomly spaz out sometimes. So I think we're missing a significant amount of value if we don't bet ace against the fish there, even if we do get folds a lot of the time. We're calling here with queens. I just want to get the note ready. Okay, obviously that's awful. And it's always nice to get free money from that sort of thing. When he checks the flop, he's been c-betting 80%, so I think it's just a spot that we can bet our entire bluff range 2 or 3 times and expect to get folds from nearly all of his range. Queens is strong enough to c-bet for value on this flop. I think, considering he's not folding often, I think 70 cents is probably better than 60. Though I would check it back on an ace-high flop, A, because he plays more ace-x, and B, because he's less likely to float with, because there are no overcards. For what it's worth, my stats for this session do show c-betting too much. That's an exploitative adjustment against the current pool, in which it is a Saturday night when I'm recording, so there are a significant number more fish, I believe, than usual. So against fish, you can just c-bet your entire range without really thinking. Just close your eyes and c-bet on lots of flops. So for instance, this one, we're just going to bet everything, even though this would probably be a c-bet anyway. Ace-5 suits just finds a call and probably play a 4-way pot here, with especially deep with the pre-flop raiser. I'm not sure how much we actually like our open ender here. It's a so-called idiot end of it. But I think when the fish bets that small, we have to probably call once on the turn. We don't have many bluffs in this spot, so I think we need to bet pretty small, considering this guy seems okay. He's playing, he's playing a bunch of tables, but 4 of those are 50 NL and 3 of those are 25. So I'd assume he's pretty good. Well, at least better than the population, so... this really sucks. I think considering we believe he's a fish, we probably have to call his river. Because he can do this with 2 pair or sets some of the time. He doesn't have many bluffs, he can have 9-10, although I think his flop bet sizing indicates he very rarely has 9-10. And we are getting 3-1. I mean, I think we're probably going to be behind roughly 60% of the time, but it's still a profitable call with that. Yeah, okay. I was wrong about him about him not having 9-10 then. But I do think we can exclude some of the combos of 9-10 from his range for that reason. I think 7-6 is just a fold here. We don't block anything relevant. And also I think fish aren't going to be bluffing our spots. Moreover, his flop calling range doesn't really have bluffs by the time he gets to that river. Again, I think we can just 3-bet a little bit wide, blind versus blind, because I think people aren't going to be very good at defending their small blind opens. We are going to see about this despite having some showdown value with bottom pair. And again, I think this is a spot where we're exploiting the 25-0 population by barreling that turn. Normally it wouldn't be a very good hand to barrel a turn with, but here we're just going to bet normal, not larger than normal, because it's a fish. And I think we have to check call his river when he checks back the flop. I don't think this guy has any bluffs here, so I think we can just fold. Okay, yeah, he played the hand fine, but I still think we played the hand fine too. I think that's obviously it's the top of his range. A lot of his range for doing that is pretty much spew. He barrels pretty wide. So when he doesn't, I'm assuming he's pretty weak, so as an exploitative thing, I'm going to bet smaller than I normally would. We're 3-betting here because we don't have a flattening range in this spot because the big blind squeezing reasonably wide. And I think it's a good spot. It's probably to bet our entire range, but definitely not flush, not flush draw, but a flush draw and 2 overs. I mean, he's fairly nitty, so I'm not sure how often he's folding, but I think this is fine as a 3-bet bluff here. Sometimes nits fold a lot, sometimes they don't fold at all. Normally this would be a good spot for a turn check raise, but I think at 25 against an unknown we can just bet twice and hope he has a weak ace-x or kings he doesn't want to let go of. Because I don't think he's going to bet wide enough after checking back that flop, because I think his ranges for checking back that flop is likely too weak. Slightly deep, I think this is still a 3-bet, to be honest. Oh, I'm 3-betting to 50 NL size against the dollar open there. 325 is fine. In case you're unaware, we're checking here because we don't really achieve anything by betting. This guy's not folding any pair. And I think we have to call his river if he bets. I don't think he has any 9x, and I don't think he's value betting worse. And I think after checking back flop and turn and flatting pre, he doesn't have queens through 10s. Though the sizing puts me off a bit. It's the top of our range. We block queens. I don't think he bluffs ace high in the spots. I know I'm justifying a call to myself here. Yeah, okay. I don't think he should bluff ace high in that spot, but obviously it's a fish, and although fish are inherently unpredictable, so they could have some value hands there, I think it's far more likely that they have some random bluff. When this guy bets the river, I think he has a jack, a decent percentage for the time, and I don't think he's going to bluff enough, especially after given the flop was a 3-way. Well, it turned was 3-way as well. Okay, so this is going to increase his 3-bet stats significantly, so I think we definitely need to take them with a pinch of salt. So I think we can flash out position in both these spots. You do probably need a range for flashing 3-bets out of position. The reason being that if you look at the ranges that you want to 4-bet for value and the corresponding percentage of bluffs you can have, that should probably be in a check call, by the way. You will realise that you will be folding significantly too much to 3-bets when you are out of position if you don't have a range for flashing them out of position. Getting like a zillion to 1 with a playable hand against a bunch of fish, even though we're out of position, I think we just have to call here. I'm going to check raise this turn because I think he always bets Jack X. I'm just gonna bet this river. I think. I don't think he's going to be very aggressive at all, and I'm not sure he's even going to value bet an ace. So I don't know. Going for turn check raise could be a mistake, but I think he often bets draws. I think he often oh god. Yeah, that's basically the one hand that going for turn check raise is a bad idea against, but I think he tends to bet draws. I think he tends to bet I think he's going to bet all his Jack X. I think he probably bet some other stuff too. We're going to 3-bet this because he's folding a bunch of 3-bets and we have blockers. When this guy cold calls, I really don't know what he's got. He probably has aces in his range because I don't know. He doesn't have aces in his range, but he definitely has ace king because he's in it. Well, I think it's probably, if you do have a cold calling range there, it probably needs to have ace king in it. And I don't think we can value bet this river considering everything was 3-way, even if it's checks was. Because I don't think we get calls from King Jack. I want to see what this guy. Okay. I guess that's a reasonable range. It's a reasonable having your range for cold calling there. He folded too much to c-bets, so we're not going to barrel this turn card because his range on the turn is pretty strong. When he checks the river, though, we're just going to overbet and expect him to fold everything. Because we can have some 7x, and I think he's just going to say, oh, but it's an overbet. We don't. Oh, it's an overbet. I don't really need to do anything about it. I mean, we're deep here, but he's calling a lot of 3-bets and folding too much to c-bets. So I think 3-betting a pretty wide range, and it's a depolarized range as well. But this hand fits in it is pretty fine. Oh, I didn't realise that we'd flopped a pair actually. I thought it was ace-8 suited. I wouldn't have bet if I'd noticed. Against a fish with no aggro squeezes behind, we can flat 10-8 suited on the button. Okay, he's not a complete fish, but he seems a bit bad. And obviously it's just a call against a flop c-bet. Regarding whether to bet, I think he has 9s and 10s in his range. I'm not sure he calls with a 7, so I think checking's best. Although it seems that every time I check back in this kind of spot, an ace hits the turn at the moment. So we obviously can't value bet the turn. If he checks a river, it's very close, but I don't see him calling with a 7. So I think it's a check. In case you didn't notice, that was a min 3-bet, so we're calling 1 big blind into 7. Hence a call. When he puts a flop, obviously we're just folding no pair, no nothing. I think one of the things you should take away most from my videos is how wide I'm defending my blind. Um, it's often said in older instructional videos and things not to and other things not to defend your blinds too wide to be out of position. We call it turner because there are loads of draws you can barrel and you barrel, and you see bets and barrels fairly often, but we just checking back the river because you don't get value from anything. This is a call turn fold river spot, I think, and I don't think we can get called by worse on the river, considering some people are nitty enough to check a queen here that they bet the turn with. Which I shouldn't be doing, by the way, because when we check back the flop, our range has a decent amount of 10x and also some weak queen x, so it's still stronger than their range on that particular turn. When a fish checks a paired flop, I'm just going to bet 100% because I expect him to fold significantly too much. I wouldn't borrow many turns, and certainly not this turn because we do have some showdown value now, especially against their ace high, king high, whatever high. And I think this river is probably a fold. I'm just thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, I can't really see why he'd turn something into a bluff now. None of these guys have. I mean, this guy almost certainly doesn't have queens through tens, kings through tens rather. Neither has a 9 or an ace in all likelihood, so I think we can bet this for value / protection. With 2 fish in the blinds, we can raise queens bigger. Probably should have made it 4x even. And now, to be honest, I think we just need to bet big and bet biggish and hope he has an ace, but I think an overbet would be too big. I think if he folds to that size bet, his range for reaching that river probably dictates a fairly inelastic calling range to a certain degree. But he's going to have some ace x, going to have some other pairs which are going to have decided an advantage, especially considering he's a weak player, whether he's going to call or fold or not, or against, not against certain sizing, but just in general. Sometimes it's going to have backdoor draws, or whatever, heart draws. It's also a flop we're exploitatively c-betting too wide on. This is one of the few turn cards we can barrel with this hand. And it did make the flop a lot wetter, so we're adding a significant amount to our sizing. I think our flop sizing was too small considering there is a flush draw on the flop. Yeah, one of the biggest leaks I see as well, I'd like to mention, is I think not focusing enough on bet sizing. There's so much money to be made in sizing your bets appropriately, especially relative to your range, especially when you consider ranges for reaching a flop, ranges for reaching turns and rivers, and how they affect your bet sizing, both your own and your opponent's. So I think another thing to take away from my videos is to try and consider bet sizing at every juncture of every hand, because you can. If I didn't think this guy was gonna cold call a lot, I would cold 4-bet this because the guy's re-stealing 19%. I think he's going to do more so against a fish. I mean, I've got this guy tagged as a good reg because he's given some decent advice in the 2+2 forums. But some of his stats seem a bit exploitable. I'm not going to say which ones because I've got a feeling he's been a member of Grinder School at one stage or other. So, I mean, that sounds a bit unfair, but if you play my games specifically, and you watch my videos, then I'd rather avoid saying, oh, this is your league, that's your league, that's the other league, in a video, though. I'm not sure about that, so feel free to comment if you feel that's not reasonable. Though hopefully from this HUD, what I think his leaks are should be fairly obvious. I mean, you can go back and pause the video to find out, to see it sort of again, if that helps. Also, it could be an interesting exercise. If you do watch this video, PM me your answers, and I'll tell you what I think about the way you've responded. Because we're slightly deep, I'm going to make this a bit bigger than usual, just a big blind. Oh. Because he's folding 64% to c-bet, so I'm going to c-bet this, even though backdoor clubs isn't a very good hand on such a wet board. So I think it'd normally be a check, considering we want to check back a much bigger percentage of our range on that board than a lot of other boards. Excuse me, I just need to take a sip of my drink. When he checks back the flop after limping pre, I expect him to really have an ace, so we're going to bet twice and hope he folds whatever he has. Okay. I think again given our knowledge about the player, I think the betting twice with our entire range there is probably a good exploitative adjustment against the population of players who do open limp with like 29-6 and then check back ace 8-3 two-tone or whatever it was. But obviously against some particular individuals, you are going to get called down by a really wide range. Sometimes it's going to be a really narrow range. I don't think you should take that to mean it's a bad spot or you've made a bad play. We're not going to see bet here because he's just going to jam too often, and we're not going to like it if he jams. Although just calling the two big blind bets does make our range. It does make our range obviously really weak. Which is why we're kind of glad that both are fish. / first level thinkers in all probability, or 0th level, depends how you identify the levels of thinking, which I think are somewhat outdated now, by the way. Once you understand what your perceived range is, which is basically what your range is in a lot of spots, it doesn't really matter whether your opponent's thinking about his perceived range, except in spots where he's potentially bluffing. And certainly beyond that, whether your opponent realizes that you're aware of your perceived range, you don't need to really be concerned about that at all. Again, this is a turn against a fish, we can bet very wide. And again, it's a spot, considering there's a lot of draws and we lose to a lot of his misdraws, we are just going to bet the river really small and hope he folds like king 6 of clubs, spades, king of spades 6, or whatever he decides to score the flop with. And we expect him to fold often enough to make it a profitable play, obviously. Yeah, you'll notice that most of the time I get post flop and I don't have a tag or detailed stats on a player. I will check how many tables are playing. I think this is pretty useful. I think it's very rare that people who are playing one table are good regs, so I did record a one tabling video myself, and I'd like to think of myself as a good reg. Likewise, it's very unlikely that people playing 4 tables at fish, well, sometimes they are again, obviously. The turn's closer when the fish donks pot. I think it's a spot to fold, considering the small blind's range is still live and definitely isn't always folding. And when he puts any more money in the pot, and when we have ace jack, we're behind his range against this in this spot. I think the big blind has Queen 9 a very decent percentage of the time there. Sometimes some random rubbish. Sometimes Jack 8, which turns to pair, 10-8, whatever. But I think the point is that when a fish does bet pots, you're opening here because of the fish in the blinds, fish here too. They overwhelmingly often are going to have a strong hand, especially when they've check called at some points, thus eliminating lots of their potential bluffs from their range. And that's true generally of all players. When they do check call at some stage, it eliminates a lot of potential bluffs from their range. Because both these guys are folding too much to c-bet, we can c-bet pretty wide here. I mean, this is for value / protection in theory, but honestly, I think we're rarely going to get called by worse. So it's more as a bluff. Plus, we have backdoor straight draw. When you bet over bets a turn, it's tough. I think we probably have to check raise anyway because he is a fish and he's gonna have a load of flushes, not only nut flushes. So we are ahead of his range for calling a check raise / ripping it in. And I'm going to take a note on him folding. Who was he? Scouty. That's the only real note I need. I don't think I'd gain anything in the future from knowing the board. And it's often a lot harder to read your notes quickly if they are cluttered. This is a good spot to protect our checking range on spade turns. And now we just have a pretty decent showdown value hand. And we have ace high, it's always pretty good. I mean, what's he repping here? I don't think this guy is going to value bets worse than a king here. I don't think he ever has a king for that matter. So he's repping Queen X or he seems... I think he might check back twice. I mean, we're betting here because we're up against a weak passive player and a fish. We're going to check call his river. I don't expect him to have 5x very often. And he has some misdraws. I don't think we can get a third street from worse. Okay, that's a very good value bet. I'm surprised he's capable of that. Well, fair play to him. I'm starting to reconsider here, but I don't think we can fold still. Because there are missed clubs. I'm not sure he'd bet the size of the set even. So, okay, he had two. Oh my, yeah, okay. Another point for the random stuff happening. Obviously, this is a very good spot, but I think it's best just to call 4-bet. Pity when he folds, but whatever. I think when we do have to cold 4-bet aces in a spot, especially in spots where we perceive to rarely cold 4-bets, it's not really a good thing. I think I've possibly made some mistakes this session because of calling too many rivers. I mean, it's because I haven't played 25 seriously in a couple of months. I think I forgot my assumption that people don't bluff nearly as often as they should. So, it's especially in river spots. So, I think a lot. For instance, King Queen just now. I think that should be a fold in light of this remembering. So I think I've possibly lost a bit of money from doing that. Against the fish, I think King 10 is strong enough to call and hope to flop a pair. Because we do have some implied odds for that, even though we're not getting direct odds. I realise I'm folding to a lot of c-bets here. Again, that's because there's a lot of fish in the pool. It's an exploitative thing. I think gate 7 off is too tight a fold with with a nitty player on the bottom. There. When he's calling a 2-bet from the blind, okay, I think he's wide enough that I could check back here. Some nets are only going to call pocket pairs here, which makes this a c-bet, but it's close. I think this probably check back just. Though it's very close. I'm probably going to tag this to review later, and obviously we're betting this river because we're betting it with we're betting it with the ace jack. It's that's where we reach because ace jack is now pretty much not low in our range when we reach that river. So I think we're pretty much balanced on the river. If he folds everything, it's a mistake. If he calls everything, it's also a mistake. Obviously min raising again is a misclick. We don't really want to play ace queen off 3-way, and it's strong enough to 3-bet against a short stack fishes. When he checks his flop, I expect his range to be weak too often, as in general at the limits. So I think we can bet too wide. I'm pretty confident that I should be betting because we have the initiative. That's a mistake. I think check jamming is probably best here. Having checked, because I think he rarely has ace king, we managed to get value from all his worst ace x, which he may check back on the river. We're donking here because we don't expect him to c-bet often, and we have a strong hand against 2 fish. We're betting pretty big on a turn because we think his flop calling range has a lot of draws. He mostly raises sets on a flop. When he min raises a turn, I think we probably have to fold, though I hate it, really hate it. Yeah, I don't think he's raising an 8 there. And I don't think he's raising draws. I don't think fish tend to do that. Okay, this guy c-bets a lot, so we can just peel a lot of flops and get away with it. We can probably bet this turn now. It's low enough in our range. I think these guys are probably weak players, so we're betting turn, shoving river with ace queen there. This is close between an isolation and limp. I think limping's probably slightly better on the button. Queen 10 is definitely a raise. We flop backdoor spades and we've got a shot. I think if it's checked to us, we can probably bet this. But it's a type of hand that we probably have to fold if we're betting into, unless we're getting sick odds, which we're not going to. Because we don't really have to have floats 5-way, in case that wasn't obvious. We're 3-betting to isolate the fish, even though we're out of position, but we're also 3-betting for value as well, because we expect to be ahead of his calling range. Because these guys this guy seems like a nit and this guy isn't 3-betting at all, I think we can min raise pretty much 100% on that button. Should have made this 1.5. I didn't realise this guy limped. Here we're betting the flop for value. I mean, he can have 10x sometimes, but he also defends much wider than that. I don't think we can bet the turn now because I'm not sure how often he calls worse. River's close. I'm tempted to value bet small. But I think he plays 10x like this pretty much all the time, as well as his weaker value hands. I think he never has queen x. So I think value betting small is probably marginally superior to checking, because I think he can call ace high and better here, which is a bigger chunk of his range than, well, obviously it's a fold now, which is a bigger chunk of his range than 10x. But if he does check back queen x on the turn, I think it's probably suicidal to value bet there. Well, not suicidal, but just bad. We're only calling 2s button against cut off because fish here, and the fish opened and the fish is in the big blind. Since I started recording these videos, I've said the word fish more than any man ever. I'm pretty confident. Well, obviously that's exaggeration, so I can't be pretty confident. But I think something you should take away from my videos in general is quite how much you can adjust to exploit fish. I mean, we can't fold anything we open here. We're probably getting implied odds to call and just fold, continue if you flop 2 pair or better. When he checks, we're just going to bet 3. Probably bet pretty small on that texture. I think I can value bet this river. I'm betting small because we want to maximise the size of his calling range. But I think he calls you pretty much all ace high. And of course sometimes whatever pairs he has, but I think there are more ace high than pairs in his range there. He has some gut shots, so we are going to bet big on the turn, just to hope to leave a ridiculous SPR left behind on the river, so if he rivers a pair, he can't fold. Like he might on that river. I don't think he has 4x very often. Oh, we didn't leave quite as small an SPR as I planned, but I don't think he has 4x very often, so I think we can shove this and expect to get called by 5x and better, even though it's pretty thin. I also think his calling range is going to be much wider than his betting range. Yeah, well, exactly. I think that proves my point. You do need to value bet extremely wide to maximally exploit fish. I think ace-9 would probably be the bottom of my value shoving range in that spot. Kind of tempted to call this just because we're getting good odds and good SPR in position, but normally I wouldn't squeeze as king against under the gun, but unless there were multiple callers, but guessing really bad flops to see bet even every time I squeeze as king at the moment. But he's a fish, so I can. I think it's most profitable to. I'm calling these small bets just to draw to 2 overs. Really, can't call now. Sometimes I'd stick around and watch some of these hands, but I don't think it's beneficial for a video. So I'm just sticking around to watch hands like open shoves, which are over irrelevant parts, which for me is over very soon, very quickly. I'm going to stop this in a moment. Fortunately, I managed to realise before an hour that the video is an appropriate length. I am going to record a third part, so you will see me back soon. I'm going to sit out next big blind on these tables and finish this part there. I suppose perhaps I should start getting my closing statements out of the way now, just so you don't have to sit looking at blank tables at all. So thanks for watching. I've been the Deafness Article for Grinder School. Hopefully you've enjoyed these videos. Please leave comments if there's anything you'd like to see from me. There are some lectures coming on GCO play and pre-flop racing, and good luck at the tables.